Welcome back to The Deep Dive, the show that takes a stack of sources, articles, bios, you name it, and really just gets to the heart of what you need to know.
And today, our mission is all about media transformation. We're diving into the career of one of the most influential journalists out there, Christina Hambly Brown, Lady Evans.
But everyone just knows her as Tina Brown.
Exactly. And we're not just, reading her resume. We're trying to figure out the blueprint, the how. How did she manage to take these classic, sometimes really stagnant media brands and just completely revitalize them?
She's the ultimate transformation artist, isn't she? I mean,
Yeah.
think about the scale here. She takes a stuffy British society magazine, Tatler,
Uh-huh.
the fading American glossy Vanity Fair, and then the big one, the super entrenched literary institution, the New Yorker.
And turns them into cultural behemoths. She was a master at mixing high and low culture.
Right. And you can see the proof of that success in the awards, not just the flashy covers.
Oh, absolutely. It goes way beyond just circulation numbers. Under Tina Brown, her publications picked up, 10 National Magazine Awards?
10. And 4 George Polk Awards, 5 Overseas Press Club Awards. It's a level of success you rarely see.
Which is why, of course, she was inducted into the Magazine Editors Hall of Fame in 2007. It was inevitable.
And it's important to see her as this transatlantic figure. She's both British and American, a journalist, editor, author.
Broadcaster, too. And in 2000, she was appointed a CBE by Queen Elizabeth II.
Commander of the Order of the British Empire. For services to journalism overseas, it feels like her whole career was built on this idea that smart content doesn't have to be, boring.
And that popular culture doesn't have to be dumb. But what's really striking when you look at all the sources is that this editorial DNA, this ability to find a great story and add some wit, that wasn't something she learned on the job.
No, it was there from the very beginning.
It was forged in her youth.
Okay, so let's start there. The foundations of this subversive editor. We need to go back to her childhood in England, Maidenhead and Little Marlow.
Her upbringing is just fascinating. It really sets the stage. It was completely steeped in storytelling, in visual drama.
Her father, George Hambly Brown, he was a film producer, right?
A pretty significant one. He produced those beloved Miss Marple detective films, the ones with Margaret Rutherford. So you have this mix of high-quality production and, popular entertainment.
And her mother was in that world, too, Bettina Core. She was an executive assistant to Laurence Olivier on his Shakespeare films.
Right. And her older brother also went into film production. So Tina Brown grew up surrounded by the mechanics of how stories are made, how drama is constructed, the power of a great image.
It wasn't just a literary house then. It was a house focused on performance, on delivery.
That's the key. She understood from day one that media, whether it's film or print, it requires a bit of spectacle, a compelling script. But she wasn't just watching the drama unfold.
She was creating it.
Very early on. The sources describe her as, and this is a quote, an extremely subversive influence as a child.
How subversive were we talking?
Expelled from 3 boarding schools, subversive.
3. That's not just, bad behavior. That's a pattern. That's institutional revolt.
And that's the blueprint, isn't it? The willingness to challenge the establishment. And not just quietly, to do it with flair, with style, in a way that gets attention.
Okay, give me an example.
She organized a protest, a full-on demonstration.
Against what?
Against the school's policy of only allowing 3 changes of underwear a week.
You're kidding.
I'm not. It's this perfect, tangible example of her questioning authority over something that's just ridiculous. It's dissent as public action.
And her wit was already there, too. The literary subversion.
Absolutely weaponized. The most famous story, of course, is from her journal. She described her headmistress's bosoms as unidentified flying objects.
Oh, that's brilliant. That is exactly the kind of smart, accessible humor she'd later put on magazine covers. It's high-quality shade.
Right. I mean, you don't just get expelled for being naughty. You get expelled for being a spectacular writer. That ability to turn rebellion into a memorable phrase, that had to be the biggest sign of what was to come.
And there was one more incident, wasn't there? Something about a play.
Yes, and this one is maybe the most telling. Drawing on that film background, she wrote a play about her school being blown up.
Blown up and replaced with what?
A public lavatory.
A literary bomb threat. I love it. It's a metaphor for her entire career. Don't just critique the institution, dramatically obliterate it, and replace it with something useful, maybe a little shocking for the masses.
A public lavatory is democratic. It's necessary. It's the perfect symbol. Her subversion wasn't just for kicks. It was about injecting some life, some frankness into these stagnant places.
And yet she channeled all that rebellious energy into getting into Oxford at just 17, St. Anne's College.
And got a BA in English literature. But even as an undergraduate, she was already honing her craft. She was writing for ISIS, the university's literary magazine.
And landing big interviews. Auburn Waugh, Dudley Moore. She was getting major names before she even had a degree.
She just had that professional instinct from the start. She was also writing for the New Statesman. The editor saw this irreverent piece she wrote about getting invited to a lunch at Private Eye magazine and just offered her a column.
So she was already generating buzz just by writing about her own life.
Yeah, and winning awards for it. While at Oxford, she won the Sunday Times National Student Drama Award for a one-act play she wrote, Under the Bamboo Tree.
And it was actually performed, right? At the Bush Theatre and the Edinburgh Festival.
It was. And she had another play staged a few years later. You have to keep coming back to this theatrical foundation. She understood performance. A magazine is a performance. The cover is a stage.
So after Oxford, she launches her professional career in London, a weekly column for Punch.
Freelancing for the Sunday Times, the Sunday Telegraph. And her work was so good, so sharp, that she won the Catherine Pakenham Award for the Best Journalist under 25.
So by her mid-20s, she's already an award-winning playwright, an established columnist, a recognized journalist. The stage was set for her first big transformation job.
And that takes us to the glamour game. The resurrection of Tatler in 1979.
So she gets this offer from the new owner, Gary Bogard, to come edit Tatler. And at the time, what was it?
It was basically a fossil, an old, fusty society magazine clinging to the past. Her job was to perform CPR.
And her strategy was brilliant. She didn't throw out the society stuff?
No, she just changed the packaging. She turned it into what she called a successful modern glossy, and she did it by blending the high and the low.
Right. She brought in her literary circle, Julian Barnes, Martin Amis, Dennis Potter, the art critic Brian Sewell, real intellectual heavyweights.
It was that synergy. Use the highbrow writers to elevate the society gossip, and use the society gossip to give the serious writers a huge new audience.
Well,
and visually, she went straight to the top.
the biggest names in photography: Norman Parkinson, Helmut Newton, David Bailey.
She knew that a modern glossy needed world-class visuals, but she also got her own hands dirty. She wrote these sharp, satirical profiles of eligible London bachelors.
Under a pen name, right? Rosie Boot?
That's the one. It was perfect. She was covering the aristocracy, but she was also mocking them from the inside, which is always the most fun. It felt like insider gossip, not some dusty old report.
And then, just through pure timing, she hits the cultural jackpot.
Lady Diana Spencer.
Suddenly, Tatler is at the absolute epicenter of this global fairy tale that was about to define the entire decade.
And by covering Diana's rise, Tatler became essential reading. Brown became such an authority that she was doing commentary on the 1981 royal wedding for NBC's Today Show.
Incredible. So what did all this do for the numbers?
The numbers are just staggering. In 3 years, circulation didn't just go up, it quadrupled, from 10,000 to 40,000.
An explosive success for a magazine everyone thought was dead.
So successful that in 1982, the legendary Condé Nast owner, Samuel Irving Newhouse Jr., he just bought Tatler outright.
And Brown's success did not go unnoticed. Newhouse had his eye on her.
Which is how, in 1983, she ends up in New York advising on a struggling magazine called Vanity Fair.
They had just resurrected it, but it wasn't working. It was floundering.
Mm.
So by January 1st, 1984, she's officially the new editor-in-chief.
And she inherits a magazine with a circulation of just 200,000. Her diagnosis was famously brutal.
She said it was pretentious, humorless, just dull.
Exactly. Her mission was to inject it with life, with drama, with an edge, to make it a magazine you had to read.
So she starts hiring writers who can deliver that drama. Her first contract writer was Dominic Dunn.
And this is where you see her genius for finding a story. Dunn told her he was going to California for the trial of the man who murdered his daughter.
And she told him to keep a diary.
Right, as a way to process it. That diary became the article Justice, a father's account of the trial of his daughter's killer. It was a cultural phenomenon.
And it launched Dunn's entire magazine career.
But that's pure Tina Brown, isn't it? It's both genius and, you could argue, ruthlessly efficient. She saw the narrative potential in his personal trauma and turned it into unmissable content.
She built a whole roster of writers like that. Gail Sheehy, Marie Brenner. She mixed serious reporting with celebrity glamour.
A perfect example is William Styron. She convinced the novelist to write about his clinical depression.
Which became the article Darkness Visible, and then a best-selling book. She was giving real intellectual weight to these personal stories.
She was. But let's talk about the visuals, the shockwaves. Her relationships with photographers like Annie Leibovitz and Helmut Newton were game-changing. These weren't just photos, they were events.
And if you have to pick one image that defines that whole era of Vanity Fair, it has to be the August 1991 cover.
Oh, the Demi Moore cover, naked and pregnant.
It was a cultural detonation. It was provocative. It was intimate. It was something no one had ever seen on a mainstream magazine cover before.
It became a front-page story everywhere. It created buzz, controversy, and it sold magazines like crazy. It proved her theory that a cover could be a piece of performance art.
But she'd been building to that for years, right? In 1985, the magazine was struggling, and there were rumors it was going to be folded.
Right, she needed to create buzz fast. So she used 3 huge stories that year. First, a Harry Benson cover of Ronald and Nancy Reagan dancing. It made them seem human.
Then, a Helmut Newton portrait of the accused murderer Klaus von Bülow in his leathers with his mistress. That's sex, crime, high society, all in one package.
And finally, she went back to her roots. She wrote her own cover story on Princess Diana, the mouse that roared. She knew Diana was the center of the celebrity universe.
So let's get to the bottom line. What did all this do for sales?
They skyrocketed. From that initial 200,000 to 1.2 million. Advertising pages soared. Single copy sales revenue hit $20 million.
Okay, that single copy number is huge. She had a 55% sell-through rate at the newsstand.
Which is insane. The industry average was, what, 42%? It means people weren't just subscribing. They were rushing out to buy the issue because she had created an event.
But there was some debate about whether it was actually profitable, right? Some, like Professor Jeffrey Pfeffer, suggested it was losing money.
There was that scrutiny, yeah. But the Condé Nast president at the time, Bernard Lizer, he completely refuted that. He said the claim was absolutely false and that Vanity Fair made a very healthy profit.
So was it making money, or was it just creating so much cultural capital for Condé Nast that Newhouse didn't care?
Probably a bit of both. The buzz and the awards were priceless for the brand. But those commercial numbers, they speak for themselves. The transformation was commercially viable. She won 4 national magazine awards there. It was a critical and a commercial success.
And the proof of that success was the next job they gave her. In 1992, they asked her to take on the impossible, modernizing the New Yorker.
Which was a whole different challenge, a huge intellectual test. She became only the 4th editor in its 73-year history and the first woman. She was walking into a literary monastery.
And her initial approach was smart. She didn't try to make it Vanity Fair 2.0. She went back to the old issues, from the founding editor, Harold Ross.
Right, she said she wanted to bring back his original irreverence, a lightness of touch. She reassured everyone that the New Yorker would remain a text-driven magazine.
But the old guard, they were not buying it. They were terrified.
Oh, they were horrified. They'd seen the Demi Moore cover. They expected a celebrity takeover. The backlash was immediate and very, very public.
This is where you get those amazing quotes. George Trow accused her of kissing the ass of celebrity.
And her reported response was just classic Tina Brown. I am distraught at your defection, but since you never actually write anything, I should say I'm notionally distraught.
Ouch. And Jamaica Kincaid called her Stalin in high heels.
Garrison Keillor quit the day she was hired. She wasn't just changing a magazine, she was desecrating a sacred institution in their eyes. Their response was furious.
But she had Newhouse's backing, and she just powered through it. She kept some of the old guard, like John Updike and Roger Angell, but she cleaned house.
She did. She let 79 staffers go and hired 50 new people who shared her vision.
And the people she brought in became the future of American journalism. This is when she hires David Remnick.
David Remnick, who she later nominated as her successor, Malcolm Gladwell, Jane Mayer, Jeffrey Toobin. She was building an intellectual dream team.
And while she kept the long-form text, she blew up the visual identity. She appointed Richard Avedon as the magazine's first-ever staff photographer.
That was a lightning strike. The New Yorker had never taken photography seriously. Hiring Avedon, a huge celebrity photographer, was a visual announcement that the magazine was now part of the global cultural conversation.
And the covers became topical, controversial.
Echoes of her school days, right. That Edward Sorel cover in 1992 of a punk rocker in a horse-drawn carriage.
It was her winking at her critics. Yes, I'm bringing in the punk rock, but don't worry, the carriage is still elegant.
And then a year later, the Art Spiegelman cover for Valentine's Day. A Jewish man and a black woman kissing. It was a direct comment on racial tensions in Crown Heights. She was using the cover as political commentary.
She also broadened the content, right? She did that whole issue on Black in America with Henry Louis Gates.
Unprecedented for the magazine. So after all that chaos and all those changes, what were the results?
The numbers, again, tell the story. Newsstand sales went up 145%. Circulation climbed to over 800,000.
But the old guard still said it was losing money.
And that's where Newhouse's perspective is so important. He said he viewed it as a startup. He said, she did what we would have done if we invented the New Yorker from scratch. To do all that was costly. We knew it would be.
It was an investment in relevance. And the losses were steadily decreasing under her. From $17 million in '95 down to $11 million by '97, she was turning the ship around.
And winning awards left and right. 10 National Magazine Awards, including its first ever for General Excellence.
Michael Kinsley called her the best magazine editor alive. She managed to expand the circulation, cut the losses, and win more awards than her predecessors. It was an astonishing achievement.
But this story doesn't end there. In 1998, she leaves the New Yorker for this massive, ambitious, and ultimately doomed venture.
Talk Media, a huge joint venture with Miramax Films. So, Harvey and Bob Weinstein and Ron Galati. The idea was to create this fully integrated media company. Books, a magazine, movies, TV shows.
The centerpiece was Talk Magazine, launched in 1999. And the launch party itself was pure Tina Brown spectacle.
It was. It was supposed to be at the Brooklyn Navy Yard, but Mayor Giuliani stopped it, so she moved it to Liberty Island.
800 guests, including Madonna and Salman Rushdie, arriving by barge, eating under thousands of Japanese lanterns. It was a statement.
The content was designed to make waves, too. The very first issue had that explosive interview with Hillary Clinton.
Where she linked Bill Clinton's philandering to his childhood abuse.
Right. And it had serious literary pieces, too, but critics felt it was sometimes a bit too cozy with Miramax stars, like Gwyneth Paltrow.
But what people forget is how serious some of its reporting was. Talk published one of the first major U.S. profiles of Osama bin Laden.
That was before 9/11. They were on top of major global stories.
But it wasn't enough. Despite a decent circulation of around 670,000, the magazine folded in January 2002.
The timing was just brutal. The advertising recession after 9/11 was devastating for the industry, especially for a new, high-cost venture like Talk.
And Brown was very honest about it. She called it her first very public failure.
But she framed it well. She said, no big career doesn't have one flame out in it, and there's nobody more boring than the undefeated.
Right. And it's really important to separate the magazine from the book division, Talk Miramax Books.
Oh, that was a huge success. Out of 42 books they published, 11 became New York Times bestsellers, books by Rudy Giuliani and Madeleine Albright. So even within that public failure, there was this quiet, undeniable success.
After Talk folded, she did a brief stint in television, right?
Oh, yeah. She hosted a weekly show on CNBC called Topic A with Tina Brown. From 2003 to 2005, it struggled to find an audience.
Averaged about 75,000 viewers. So she resigned from that to write her Diana biography.
Which brings us to her next big pivot, into the digital world with the Daily Beast. In 2008, she teams up with Barry Diller to launch this online news site.
A totally different animal. Fast-paced, online, needing constant traction.
But it got popular very quickly. They had these high-impact exclusives, like Christopher Buckley's column endorsing Obama. They were making news.
And they won Webby Awards for Best News Site in 2012 and 2013. So she proved she could adapt her buzz-making skills to digital.
But then came the merger. In 2010, the Daily Beast merges with Newsweek.
And Brown is put in charge of the whole thing, tasked with reviving this dying print giant with her digital startup.
Then it was just an impossible challenge. The print collapse was accelerating so fast. By December 2012, Newsweek published its final print issue.
And that digital-only version didn't even last. They brought the print edition back after she left, which just shows how tough that market was. Even she couldn't beat the economics of 2012 publishing.
And there was some controversy there, too. An issue with some false reporting about a kidnapped Canadian journalist, Amanda Lindau. It led to a retraction from NPR.
So in 2013, she leaves. But Barry Diller's statement at the time was really important. He defended her tenure.
He made a crucial distinction. He said, if you take away the failed experiment to revive Newsweek, the story of the Daily Beast itself is one of excellence.
So the takeaway is, she could launch a successful digital brand from scratch. But saving a stinking print institution, that was a bridge too far for anyone.
Precisely. And while all this was going on, she was building two other huge pillars of her career. Her work as a royal biographer and as a pioneer of live journalism.
Let's talk about the books. The Diana Chronicles in 2007 was a monster hit.
A massive success, topped the New York Times bestseller list. She followed it up in 2022 with The Palace Papers.
Another bestseller. She really established herself as the go-to chronicler of the modern monarchy.
But the reviews were always polarized, which is so typical of her work. The Wall Street Journal called her the ideal tour guide.
But others found the mix of serious reporting and gossip a bit much. The Spectator said some of the gossip was grossly implausible.
It's the same tension. Using the sensationalism to get a mass audience for the sharp reporting. It defined her magazines, and it defines her books.
And then there's Women in the World, which she started in 2010. She called it a live journalism platform.
Which was a genuinely innovative idea, taking stories off the page and putting them on a stage, amplifying the voices of global women on the front lines.
And the scale was huge. These summits were at Lincoln Center, with just an incredible lineup of speakers.
Hillary Clinton, Meryl Streep, Oprah Winfrey, Angelina Jolie, Nobel laureates.
Queen Rania of Jordan. It gave the platform immense credibility.
And they took it global. São Paulo, London, New Delhi. It proved there was a huge appetite for serious, inspiring journalism, as long as it was packaged with the right star power.
It really showcased her commitment to serious, impactful journalism, which sometimes gets lost in all the talk about celebrity covers.
Finally, just to round out her career, we have to mention the honors and her personal life, the CBE in 2000. She's still a commentator for major royal events like the Queen's funeral.
And of course, her late husband, Sir Harold Evans, the legendary editor of the Sunday Times, she now hosts the annual Investigative Journalism Summit in his name.
Which features people like Bob Woodward and Carl Bernstein. It keeps her firmly connected to that world of high-level, rigorous journalism.
And she recently wrote about her son, Georgie, who is on the spectrum and still lives with her, which really humanizes this larger-than-life figure.
It does. Her whole career is just this incredible case study in audacity and brand resuscitation. She was never afraid to take on the biggest, hardest jobs.
So if you had to boil down her methodology, her core characteristic, what is it?
It's her ability to use high-stakes, personality-driven stories, Diana, Demi Moore, a controversial cover to draw attention and, crucially, to fund high-quality, intellectually demanding writing. She built a commercial engine for serious journalism.
So what does her story teach us about media today?
It teaches us about the cost and the sheer audacity it takes to revolutionize these legacy brands. She navigated that brutal transition from print to digital, and her career shows that relevance isn't just about quality. It's about constant, sometimes painful reinvention. The moment you get comfortable, you start to die.
She definitely never got comfortable. Let's leave our listeners with a final thought then, something that goes all the way back to her beginnings.
Think about the irony. This is the young rebel who wrote a play about blowing up her school.
And replacing it with a public lavatory.
Yes, and she becomes this establishment figure, honored by the Queen, the world's most famous chronicler of the monarchy. She used her subversive talent to get inside the elite, and then she told the most commercially successful, analytically sharp stories about their lives.
That's the ultimate transformation. Proving the greatest distance in media is sometimes between the critic and the chronicle.
Absolutely.
The deep dive is a shortcut to being well-informed. And today, we are definitely well-informed on the dramatic career of Tina Brown. We'll see you next time.